Everybody here on Hyperspace on PSN Radio. Hope you're enjoying the show tonight. I'm here with my special guest, Dan Willis. Once again, if you want to call in, you can do so at 786-245-8127 if you have a question for Dan. And Dan, we were talking about the astronaut.
Yeah, it was bugging me. I couldn't remember. I finally got the exact. It's Gordon Cooper. It was 33rd degree Freemason. He stated that, quote, I had a camera crew filming this was at Edwards Air Force Base in California in 1957, just for reference. He says, quote, I had a camera crew filming the installation when they spotted a saucer. They filmed it as it flew overhead, then hovered, extended three legs as landing gear, and slowly came down and landed on a dry lake bed. It was a classic saucer, shiny, silver, and smooth, about 30 feet across. It was pretty clear it was an alien craft, unquote. This is an American hero, that's speaking. He also spoke about the secrecy. He said, quote, so they told one untruth, they had to tell another to cover that one, then another, then another. It just snowballed. And right now I'm convinced there's a lot of embarrassed government officials are sitting there in Washington trying to figure out a way to bring the truth out. Of course, they didn't read them into all this, I'm sure. They know it's got to come out one day, and I'm sure it will. America has a right to know, unquote. Now, it's interesting. One of the witnesses that joined me in Washington, Donna Hare, she was involved into secret compartmental operations there at NASA, where they were airbrushing the UFOs out before they released them to the public. That was her testimony. And she was also told the astronauts were told to keep it secret. And she said, I worked out there for a number of years. And, there's some people that know about this and some people don't. I don't know how they do it, she said, how people could work out there for years and not know. And I think that's pretty much the situation, not only with NASA, some call it never a straight answer, and everything. The NSA, the CIA, the military, our government. I got a clear dosage of that when I met with senators in Congress up on Capitol Hill after going to the National Press Club. We brought them a 500-page briefing document and 4-hour witness testimonies, sat down with them. Witnesses went in groups and met with different Congress people. And pretty much all of them were out of the loop. And, and when we toured across the United States, like I was talking about earlier, I have a pretty good technical background, so I set up an online fax that included the president and all the representatives. I even included a database of all the embassies around the world so people can contact the leaders of other countries. About 30,000 people sent faxes in. And this was before 9/11. This was on May 9th of 2001, about 4 months before the 9/11 terrorist event happened, which everything went off the radar when that happened. But I got about, out of 30,000 faxes, about 60 or so came back. I told people, send them to me. I'll put them online so people can see how our government representatives are responding to this issue. Talking about release of this technology and the energy and, all this. And pretty much I started to analyze it. By the way, I put them all up on the webmatrix.net. You can see all the responses from President Bush and all the representatives, and pretty much it became clear that they all have been indoctrinated, all out of the loop. Of course, you can imagine if CIA directors and heads of intelligence are out of the loop, of course the members of Congress are going to be out of the loop. But it appeared that they were indoctrinated to how to respond to this issue in a certain way, with official letters of, NASA saying, there's no evidence whatsoever, and that Project Blue Book decided, there's nothing to it. And even in 2011, when thousands of letters went into Washington to release the extraterrestrial technology and about all the witnesses, President Obama came back with the response that there's absolutely no evidence. Then isn't it kind of odd to have like 500 witnesses and all these documents? And I guess what qualifies as evidence? That's my question.
Well, I think they also do. Don't they take an oath of secrecy where they can't disclose anything that's classified anyway? So they're going to have to pretend it doesn't exist. I mean, isn't that really the game?
True.
So, I mean, that's probably why, in other words, and honestly, we are the disclosure. We've talked about this before, and many other hosts have as well. I mean, we are the disclosure, the people that are doing the research investigations, people who have experience, people who have been contacted as contactees, or even, seeing anomalous activity in the skies. We're right here on the front lines, and we're exposing it. But yeah, I don't think we'll ever get disclosure from these guys. I don't think we'll ever get a confirmation. But what's interesting when you're talking about the moon, I mean, when you're talking about these fleets of UFOs on the moon, you have to ask yourself, what are they doing there? How long have they been there? And what kind of species are we dealing with? Or is it part of the Black Space program, the Germans or whoever?
Well, it's after the 2001 press conference, it inspired a hacker over in the UK, Gary McKinnon, who got into the Space Command of NASA, and they found this list of all these quote non-terrestrial officers. I mean, how do you interpret that one? And also a couple of USS ships, not United States ship, but possibly United States spaceship. Who knows?
I want one.
They really wanted to hang him. Because that's one of their vital secrets is about this secret space program that's going on. Because you look at some of the, I'm pretty good at Photoshop. I know how to use a smudge tool. I could cover up things pretty well if I wanted to, but they are so sloppy. The images with obvious Photoshop blurring tool, squish, 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 they cover all these structures that are in these official NASA photographs, not only on the moon, but on Mars as well. So, and it's almost as though they don't care. That, it's almost as though it's kind of in your face, like, we're just going to smudge it, and you can't really say there's anything there, but we know a lot of people know, but I think only the NSA with their quantum computers up there in, what is it, Bluffdale, Utah, that has enough capacity.
Oh, go ahead.
Enough capacity to store several decades, and quantum computers that can analyze every conversation like this show that we're having, analyze it with artificial intelligence, which they plan to replace. Usually they have NSA analysts come in. In the old days, they had Project Echelon, which would be like, you say certain keywords, and a certain keyword would turn on the recording. And if you get enough hits on a certain keywords, an analyst would come in, plug in his phone jack, and listen, to see what was going on. Old technology. This is like this is back 60s stuff, right? Now, with the artificial intelligence, with 512-bit encryption, it takes the known age of the universe to decipher an encrypted text. So, 512-bit encryption is pretty safe, to use. But with a quantum computer, which processes in parallel universes with these computational bits that process in multiple dimensions, I guess you could say at once, it takes a few seconds to a few minutes at the most to decrypt anything. So with the artificial intelligence capability and the fact that, even when your cell phone's off, they have little backdoor keys that can turn your microphone on. It looks like your cell phone's off, but it's still sending information to the network, and it could be recording. That Snowden leaked that. That was called Sleepy Murph, I think it was called. But they have backdoors to everything, and so there isn't a confidential private conversation on this planet.
No, and the next step, of course, is transhumanism, where they're interconnected with the brain hacking. That's going to be the next big thing, so they can access the brain directly and, of course, communicate. When you're talking about these encryptions and everything, are you talking about just encrypting and decoding verbiage like dialogue, or are you talking everything?
Oh, well, whatever. You know, you encrypt an image, you encrypt text, you encrypt voice. You know, if you encrypt it, somebody that downloaded it or intercepted it couldn't make heads or tails of it. No way,
Mm-hmm.
But with using the quantum computers, now the quantum computers would, Edward Snowden said, his sole motive was to, expose what was being done against us and in our name.
Mm-hmm.
And William Binney, which was a code breaker for 25, 30 years, top code breaker, he quit in disgust after they started the warrantless wiretapping that Bush instigated. He said they're making dossiers on everybody. And to me, it makes sense if the Nazis had a worldview warfare plan, and obviously they infiltrated into the CIA, NSA, way back in the very beginning,
Mm-hmm.
that they could know how many people are buying what they're seeing on the mainstream media and are just going along completely clueless what's going on in the world around them. And then how many people are putting the dots together and just kind of waking up and getting it together, of what's going on around them.
Right. Yeah, so that's really happening too. I mean, well, you're seeing more and more people awakening to what's really happening, and all these veils are just kind of falling away.
Well, this is what Brzezinski, the co-founder of the Trilateral Commission, along with David Rockefeller, said, in a 2012 speech, that because of the alternative media of the internet, because of things like you do, Solaris, there's this global awakening that's occurring because people on the alternative media are, they're starting to put it together, and this is probably why the NDAA has made it legal to use disinformation against the American people, and that's why they have all the sock puppets, shills, and trolls going around trying to tell you that, oh no, that's just a conspiracy theory, and eat your GMOs and get your vaccination. It's good for you.
Right, exactly. Live in the false matrix. Live in the dream. Live in the dream. Then they break out of it and they realize it's all a game. It's one big program.
Yeah, well, the truth is we've been so far removed from what the truth is through so many generations of false indoctrination perpetrated by this group with the Rockefeller connections and everything, and controlling education, the mainstream media and whatnot, that it keeps its own best secrecy. Because, when I first discovered, the whole thing about, oh my God, so then we won the war with Germany, but the Nazis escaped. They go over 100.
Who won the war?
I
don't think the Nazis lost the war. Do you?
No way. No. We won the war with Germany, but all the Nazis escaped with the help of all the fascists. In fact, 1933, when Hitler came into power,
the Bushes.
Tried to overthrow, tried to set up death camps and set up the whole thing. Snedley Butler, Marine Corps general, pretended he was going along and then foiled the plot and wrote a book afterward called War is a Racket. And, I was in the Vietnam War in combat action, and, that whole thing was all a false flag event, making up stuff, which I found out later, with McNamara and everybody that, with conversations with LBJ, that it was basically a contrived event. It didn't really happen. And so 58,000 young guys lost their lives for what? But one of the captains, when I was in Vietnam, saw a lot of drugs being loaded onto the plane. So there was more things to do with Vietnam than what was in the mainstream media.
It's always like a stage and a setup, false flag to some degree. It's really interesting. It seems like they've been doing this for such a long time, this orchestration.
And it hasn't stopped in the Middle East. What was the first thing the U.S. did when they went and invaded Afghanistan? They restarted all the poppy fields.
Oh, yes.
The drug trade continues.
Well, it works out perfect, that they use they got all El Chapo, but, that doesn't stop the drug operations. It's a perfect source for, unacknowledged funds where they're off the books. And we know alone the stuff that's accounted for in the black projects, I think Catherine Austin Fitz talks about that a lot. It's like I think it estimated 1.7 trillion or something every year. So that's just the acknowledged stuff that's kind of, but there's all these in other words, the resources you can imagine that get funneled into the breakaway in order to build these huge, massive underground structures and to create a secret space program. It takes enormous amounts of money, unbelievable amounts of money. And so they can't have it accountable, and so they have it like that.
Yeah, it's unlimited. There's no doubt about that one. Hey, Angel, do you have any questions?
Well, I do have a question. Do you think that Wernher von Braun played a big part in a lot of the secret black budget projects that have been going on for the last 50 years? Since after he left NASA, he kind of disappeared and went into what many would say underground.
Well, it was kind of interesting. They asked him. Along with Hermann Oberth, who was his mentor, who was the father of modern rocketry, who said, when they asked about, the great gains that they made, the Nazis, when they went over there at the end of the war, that were like blown away. Kennedy went over there with Forrestal and looking at all the extraterrestrial derived technologies, and their stuff was like so far advanced. That's what initiated, Operation Paperclip. But von Oberth said, we had help from people from other worlds, quote unquote, and von Braun was a little more cryptic about the whole thing. He said, well, we've run into forces way more powerful than us, and I cannot give an accurate description. I'm paraphrasing at this time, but maybe in the future I'd be able. He was very cryptic about it, but essentially saying, run into forces. In other words, the extraterrestrial contact that the Nazis had may have started an exchange program way back in 1933 in that area. I know back in 1936 they had an ETV crash in the Black Forest, which they reverse engineered, and way back in 1919 the Virile Society was getting channeled. Yeah, about the with design plans that Dr. Schumann from the University of Munich said there was viable physics from this stuff was translated from channeling that was ancient Sumerian script, and he takes it. A high-level scientist. He's the one that's responsible for the Schumann resonance, and that they were able to work off of that, and it created a craft that could warp the flow of time around it, is what they said. And it brings up the thing about the bell and the counter-rotational Mercury fields. Well, it's interesting in my own research, what Mark McCandless shared with me on the alien reproduction vehicle, using Mercury as the key ingredient in the canceling of mass. Well, I noticed that 2 Nazi U-boats in 1944, one up by Norway, which is one of the underground bases, and one down somewhere kind of near Australia, maybe going down to Antarctic base. One had 67 tons of mercury in sealed glass containers. The other one had 33 tons. In fact, it's causing an environmental leakage damage in the Norway area. That's a lot of thermometers, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think definitely Mercury, and you look back, and Himmler was all over going off ancient occult knowledge all over the world. The Vermatas of ancient India used a Mercury engine that the spinning Mercury would cause a magnificent flight, or so, however they worded it. There was definitely a tie with the occult knowledge that the Nazis put together. So the Nazis weren't limited to the regular thinking that is done in schools. They tied in a lot of occult, because the Nazis were very much into...
Hitler especially was into the occult big time.
Oh, Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder about all the Solaris and our family members were 33rd degree Freemasons, and you have to wonder about all the people that are high levels in the Freemasons. Like when you get up to the 33rd degree, now you can't do anything to get to the 33rd degree. There's nothing you can do to get there. You have to be specially selected. And like when Kennedy was murdered, Allen Dulles, who set up the assassination, was a 33rd degree Mason. LBJ was a 33rd degree Mason that set up the Warren Commission by Earl Warren, who was a 33rd degree Freemason. Gerald Ford, who tried to say that the bullet came in from another direction, trying to taint the report study that they were doing, was a 33rd degree Freemason. You have all, the coincidences of all these people, high-level Freemasons, and the Knights of
and every president of this country has been Freemason, pretty much. Every single president we've had,
except for Lincoln and Kennedy, and
and that's when they got assassinated. Yeah.
Well, John Wilkes Booth, who shot Lincoln, was a 33rd degree Freemason.
Yep.
Who hid away in Texas.
What does that tell you?
Go figure.
Mm-hmm.
Just the coincidences are kind of, since Solaris and I are not 33rd degree Freemasons, we don't know, can we? Because it's a secret society. I
got a question for you, Dan. Being a family member of Masons, are you afraid ever for your safety talking about these kind of subjects, knowing that that's part of the family and they're listening in?
No. My grandfather died. He lived in Argentina back before the Nazis occupied it, and his father was a 32nd degree, was the president of the Homeopathy Society in Connecticut and California. They're all doctors that got into the stuff. I've gone into the high levels of the Rosicrucian order since 1976. I've been studying. I'm universal. I like studying from everything and piecing together what makes sense, intuitively and logically. So no, I'm not. And I like being visible too. Talking about this stuff. It's the best thing is to be visible.
I agree, because if you go off the radar, then at least it's a red flag. People keep an eye out.
Yeah, whacking me will do no good. It's like they've got. I'm not saying anything new. Anybody that's listening can. If you go to the webmatrix.net, I put a chronology together that can help people piece together things. But there's lots of great researchers out there that have done way more than I have. I just started to become aware of these things because of in 2014, a company in Hollywood, knowing I was a witness and an ABC newsman, wanted me to write an article on media control. And since that was a big interest of mine, I said, sure. So I started researching and I started saying, oh my God, that's why that happened. This is why this is happening. And, why CBS, cut that part out. And so it turned into a web version. And so it helped me. It seems like if you want to learn something, put together a chronology and start putting in the missing pieces and that are based on, I try to base everything based on the witness testimonies of these people who are not getting any money. A lot of them are, high ranking, not necessarily all of them. You can just be a sergeant or something and have a cosmic level. I'm doing a show with Clifford Stone next week on Tuesday, and he was no high-ranking person, but he had a cosmic level clearance involved in the alien retrieval cases, where he was one of the witnesses that joined me that said by 1999 there was 57 species that have been categorized, and there's
Amazing.
probably way more than that now.
What are they doing with these species when they catalog them? Are you talking about being entrapped? Are they dead? Did they take tissue samples?
Different races, different types. Different types of grays, different type. The Nordic ones, the ones that look like us. Wonder why they look like us.
But also, have they taken these bodies? Are they alive? Are they underground? Are they?
No, I think he just means they're categorizing the reports of the aliens that people are encountering.
Okay, so these are reports, but not physical encounters.
Correct.
These are the types of.
Reports.
The reports are thousands and thousands. These are the types of different extraterrestrial beings, and who knows? Some of them may be native to this planet that live underground. Maybe the whole thing about Admiral Byrd going down, Operation High Jump, attacking the Nazi base, which Forrestal was talking about in the hospital, where they tried to, keep him quiet. They had to suicide him. It could be that we have races that, like Phil Snyder said, they broke into this other structure that was underground as well, as we were trying to build this base, and there was some not too friendly. I think the majority of them. I'm not a big evil alien person, because I think a lot of the civilizations that have evolved. Look how young we are as far as. It wasn't that long ago, horse and buggies. If you have a couple of thousand millions of years in advancement, and they haven't destroyed themselves, they must have figured out something working in harmony with the universal laws of the universe. My belief is that the majority of them are benevolent, and some of them are just probably just observing, watching how we deal with it. They're not going to fix our problems for us. That they are just kind of watching. I think a lot of them want to see us evolve and get out of our lies and deceptions, and evolve into a peaceful civilization, but I don't know about all of them. I don't have any first-hand experience with that, so I can't really speak on that.
It's funny. My consensus has always been that if they wanted to kill us, they would have done it by now. If they wanted to take over the planet, they would have done it by now. The fact that we're here and people are having their sightings or whatever, but the fact that we're still here living our lives means that they're not as hostile as some people might think, or maybe their intentions are not to destroy us. Maybe they just are studying us. Let me ask you, Dan, though, there's a big movement going on right now by folks on the internet talking about the flat Earth theory. What are your thoughts on that theory, and do you think it's plausible at all? Because a lot of folks are talking about this as being the biggest conspiracy of all.
Yeah, I think it goes right along with Alan Dulles was we're trying to see with the Reich saucers, seeing how easy it is to fool the public. I think the CIA does things to see how easy it. Well, I guess all the rest of the planets. We're the flat one, right? All the rest of the planets happen to be round, and
Well, no, that's not the consensus. Actually, they're saying that everything it's pretty much an illusion. That we live on this dome planet on a flat surface. They don't understand what the bottom of it looks like. It could be kind of like a spaceship type of thing. But we're not floating in space the way they're telling us that we're floating in space. Planets don't exist the way they tell us they exist. In fact, on top of our dome is another entrance to heaven where God is. That's the flat Earth theory. It goes all the way back to the religious original idea of what the Earth was like before we knew it's round.
Well, I haven't dug deep into it, just a little bit, just to kind of see, kind of hurting my head. But
it's a tough one. But it's funny when you watch a lot of stuff on YouTube, especially there's a lot of videos on it. When you watch some of the evidence, or not evidence, but theories and the way they're working them out scientifically, there's some credible stuff behind it. I mean, you and I, or Solaris, none of us could go out there and prove that the Earth is round. We just can't do it. It's impossible for us to go out there and do it. So it leaves you up to that, that idea of, well, it could be a possibility because we can't prove it, and we can't believe NASA, even though they tell us that it's round. We don't believe NASA. So what's the truth?
Yeah. My first impression on that was that it's a CIA psyops thing. Where they're just seeing what they put some pretty elaborate pretty elaborate videos, and it's really promoted heavily. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's all over the YouTube. So yeah, to me that's kind of like a little red flag, on it. But scientists are finding that everything is basically illusionary and holographic, and that everything is a perception. And you have to wonder that the Nazis were all into the occult, and you wonder if some of that ancient knowledge that came out of the ancient mystery schools of Egypt, during the time of Akhenaten, and if you look at the skull of Akhenaten that sticks out way like Nefertiti and everybody, they weren't regular humans. They had advanced knowledge that was somehow stored in ancient scrolls and tablets that the Nazis, were able to acquire and probably relocate down, along with the Abenaki, I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but anyway, the society of the Nazis that raided all the libraries of all the occult knowledge and then took it all down to Antarctica. The Nazis had this philosophy of qualitative rather than quantitative, against the enemy. In other words, they went into, although they used a huge submarine fleet they were able to create, which most of them can't be accounted for. They knew that with all the planes and tanks and ships and everything like that, going after it is not the smart way to do it. It's better to work smart, and they did. They infiltrated controlled the CIA, and they basically created this matrix of perception. So on a deeper level, on the more occult side, on the mystical side of things, it could be that, and this is all tied in with Tavistock and all the psychological things. I'm just speculating here, okay? But I think with understanding the occult sciences, you can understand how to influence the fabric of reality. I knew this doctor. His name was Dr. Ray Brown, and he was a treasure hunter, and he went down off the coast of Bimi, and there was a giant pyramid that was, I'm making a long story really short, but he went down there, and it was this room inside this pyramid. This was documented. It was on In Search of, narrated by Leonard Nimoy, and Dr. Marcel Vogel, who I worked with in a laboratory, was analyzing this crystal that was held in these two hands with these 7 chairs around it, with this golden rod coming down with a ruby crystal pointing at it in this room inside this pyramid. And it became pretty aware that and, you have to think about the Nazis believing they used to be the master race from Atlantis, that there was an interface with the consciousness of the beings that were sitting around this crystal sphere that was about the size of a tennis ball, that was unusual in that it had all these pyramidal grids inside of a quartz sphere. And there's no technology that was available back in the 60s to be able to create something like this. He has since passed away, but it makes me think that, Antarctica, they had a huge interest in Antarctica, not only from the sense of, being a great place to, with the warm underground, lakes and things like that, but it used to be the part of the continent of Atlantis, and the Russians have discovered pyramids, and I looked at the imagery that they showed down there, and the angle is like the 52-degree angle of the Great Pyramid in Giza, the same exact angle. I did a photo overlay looking at it, just curious to see if it was the same angle, and it was. So there's the grid system of pyramids around this planet that were used for possibly the actual interface of consciousness with reality. It's the only way I can put it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. What comes to mind also is we discussed a little bit the Wardenclyffe Tower, how they're recreating that in Russia. Do you remember when I sent you that link?
Yeah. The Tesla towers.
Right.
That was incredible. The little drone flying around this incredible structure.
Right. You have to ask
You know,
what their motive is behind that. That's incredibly powerful.
well, there's also these huge, massive phased arrays that are now radioactive because they were near the Chernobyl. But they had these huge, massive arrays that was back in the, I think it was back in the 70s. They were using it for over-the-horizon radar. It used to be called the woodpecker signal. The ham radio operators would hear it go like that on the short wave bands all over the band. It was like huge. I mean, these things were gigantic. They were phased arrays. And what a phased array antenna is like you have one antenna and you space another one that's the appropriate wavelength apart from it, and it like doubles the signal. You put another one next to it, and it doubles. It keeps on getting. And just like HARP, that's a phased array, and it can be the phase angle can be shifted so they can directionally point it at different parts of the ionosphere, and cause heating and do geoengineering, which they have patents on. But back in the early 80s, I worked with Dr. Robert Beck, who would work with the CIA that with ELF frequencies and mind control, and he gave me a huge book. It was from the CIA that had to do with the mind control. And my house got broken into, and only that was stolen.
Naturally, yeah. I was going to say, can I have that book? I'd like to look at it. Confirm my data.
But what they were doing with the over-the-horizon radar was the Russians are on a 50 hertz grid system, the electrical power. We're on 60 hertz. What they were doing was heterodyning. They were hitting the frequency on our 60 hertz. That what happens is when you heterodyne two radio signals together, it creates both the sum and the difference of the frequencies. And the difference was falling right into the psychoactive window, which caused the ELF frequencies to affect the brainwaves. When I worked for 13 years in the Naval Electronic Engineering Center, and I worked on the satellite equipment with this old Navy captain, and I was experimenting with the magnetic oscillators, and there's some frequencies that what was happening was they were beaming it into Oregon, and people were like driving off the roads. They were doing all kinds of stuff because certain frequencies cause the left and right hemispheres to disassociate, causes spatial disorientation. And so I accidentally, this was a perfect double-blind experiment. I accidentally left the frequency counter on a period measurement. I couldn't see the frequency. I didn't realize I accidentally left it on. He's trying to wrap the satellite equipment, something he's done for years. He can do it in his sleep at night, And he's trying to wrap it, and he's going, what the hell? I can't say this on the radio. Well, what's going on here, And I looked at the gun, I switched it over to frequency. Oh my God, I had it on the frequency that was causing the disorientation. And so even the CIA has these little pins that send out what happens is the brain has these cholesterol esters with these liquid crystals that are sensitive down to 1/100th of a nanotesla. That means that in layman's terms, that's like you can be a block away and wiggle a magnet, and the brain picks it up. That's how sensitive it is. So the brain will lock on to an electromagnetic signal within 4 seconds. I think that's part of the reason why Tesla abandoned, not only did, J.P. Morgan, sabotage him, but he also realized that it could affect living systems on this planet oscillating the ionosphere like that, because we are tuned into the earth. He also found out that all the people have these amazing healing abilities and masters and Zen masters and things. When they were working state of consciousness, that the frequency of the brainwave came out to about 7.832 hertz or something like that, right around 8 hertz, where the left and right hemispheres, they work perfectly together. They synchronize. It's like you have a man and woman inside of you, and normally there are two separate brain waves going on, but when it locks onto the Earth frequency, they they lock in perfect sync and they increase in amplitude. And that's the point where they have, people have these amazing abilities when the man and woman, you could say, are working in harmony within you. And it's probably part of the reason why the Tavistock Institute likes to break up relationships and stuff like that. There's a power there. And it's probably why, I was just watching with Rebecca, what was it with the I'm getting over a little cold, so my head's a little spacey. The Da Vinci Code, about how the churches got together and had to, take the whole thing with Jesus and Mary out of the whole picture and make it look like, Jesus was, nothing to do with that aspect in order to maintain control. So there seems to be like this fear of the power between a man and a woman to have this incredible ability that, Pythagoras, who went to the mystery schools in Egypt, he used to do the star of creation, which is a 6-pointed star with a dot in the middle. The dot represents creation. And it's like the balance between the masculine and feminine. All things are created out of that. There's some profound knowledge there, but that's about as far as I'll go on that one.
Well, it makes a lot of sense when they call it the sacred union for various reasons. But you're right about the right and left hemispheres needing to balance. And of course, if anybody has a holistic background in healing, they know how to ramp up to what we call the light body into Merkaba, and that's all about prana, life force, consciousness, and balancing those hemispheres. It's really disturbing what they can do to mess with brainwave activity, especially with the heterodyning. That's so concerning to me, and I'm very clear on what they're capable of through signal transmission. So, who knows how many people are being affected without knowing that they're being affected from day to day.
And that was it was so correct, Solaris. And that's old primitive stuff. The ELF brainwave. I made little units, and people used to back in the late 70s and early 80s were making these little oscillators and stuff like that. But they do work. At MIT, they did a triple mu metal shielded cage and put somebody in with a double blind, and within 4 seconds, the brainwave locked right on. So they could mood manipulate. And I even gave it to a mother who was having trying to watch these children that were like overamped, you know what I mean, running around like crazy, and just put them on a certain frequency and it just mellowed them right out.
Better than Ritalin, right?
Hey, no bad side effects.
Right, as long as it's not damaging their brain. Yeah, exactly. Well, nowadays they have the artificial telepathy and all the other stuff that they can do to control, manipulate brainwaves. So changes the dynamic. And it's like you have a secondary brain outside of your own. So besides the two hemispheres that are balanced, you have an exterior brain that's interconnected. So it's an interesting time we're in. They're having this month. They're having the Architects of the New Paradigm conference. It's like, you wonder, how only the NSA knows for sure, right? How many people are like putting the dots together, realize that the whole system has been infiltrated, and they've been creating this matrix of perception for some time. Right. People are starting to do conferences where they're trying to think of how to do it. After traveling around the country, going to Washington, meeting with Congress and senators, sending, doing as much as I could as a witness to try to bring awareness to the public, all avenues seem to be compromised by the cabal. So I started to think, well, maybe you can't really change it from the outside. You have to, maybe be that change you want to see and try to use your power of visualization. I know it seems like, here you got this massive military thing and these incredible resources and money and underground bases, and let's just go ohm and visualize, right, and make it better. Right. Well, it's also a resonance effect too, Dan, because when you're out here talking, there's an energetic signature associated, and other people pick up on it, and they become awakened to a higher level. So I call it the resonance effect. It's like osmosis. I believe people do get it, and they do change the dynamic of what's happening on the timeline just by consciousness. Once again, it's that thought. It's what we manifest.
It's so encouraging, though, because you can see the morphogenic field, the collective consciousness that we're all interfaced in. As more of us become aware, it becomes exponential. The awareness, you can see it everywhere. People are, even my family, for Thanksgiving, there was they're evangelicals, like very conservative, and I was talking about the Nazis and coming in, and they say, oh yeah, they even one acknowledged, about the collective consciousness, and so it's kind of interesting that it's probably why Brzezinski was so afraid that there's this global awakening that's happening, because there's so many of us compared to them that if all of us became fully aware of what's been hidden from us, the truth that George H.W. Bush says we can't handle, let's say, was made available to everyone. My God, there's just too many of us to, it's just the right thing to do. It's like we were not made to live in a world of lies. We were not made to evolve in a world without love and honesty. And, this whole deception thing is it's a distortion of the true matrix that creation is, and the distortion must, as all things that are distorted, wilt away and die.
Oh, it is already. Yeah.
It is. There's signs of it happening, encouraging signs that are happening.
I agree. So, well, even when Bush said they can't handle the truth, well, the reason they can't handle the truth is because they've been lied to since day one. Had they just told the truth since the beginning, we wouldn't have these problems. We'd have an advanced society on free energy, more than likely. We would have a wonderful world with no conflict, no war, no nothing. This is the problem I'm seeing, is that they should have never kept everything secret. But you have people who are trying to control and manipulate that small percentage that wants everything, but they don't want anybody else to have access. And you know what? It's our celestial birthright to have access to this information. We are star beings. And as I always say, we come from the stars, we go back to the stars. Truly, we do. And that's all in our cells and our atoms, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, all the nuclear power plants be retrofitted. We can have vehicles that don't need roads. We can have the radiation. They even have classified technology that can remediate the radiation. We can have places being irrigated, desalinated. Most things consume too much power in order to make it practical. But with the technologies that are being hidden away in these breakaway civilizations, that the whole world, everybody would have the basics of food, water, shelter at the very minimum. The whole world could be transformed into the beautiful paradise that I think the Earth was meant to be.
I think eventually that will transpire. I don't know if I'll live to see it, but I think we're on the right path on that level. But there is conflict right now. We have to look at that. But we're getting ready to wrap this up pretty soon. But Dan, this has been so wonderful to have you on. I so appreciate you being with us tonight. It's been great to talk to you, interview you.
Oh, it's always wonderful to do a show with you, Solaris. It's so much fun. I didn't know what we were going to talk about tonight. We just started rattling off, and
it's good.
Nazi underground bases, missing children, and who knows?
Correlates, though, Dan, doesn't it? And let everybody know how to access your website and also any information you want to share.
It is www.thewebmatrix.net, not .com, but .net.
Awesome.
Everything's on there, and my contact information, and just share. See what resonates for you, and pass it along.
Incredible information in there. You've done so much research. I applaud you for all the work you do. Incredible stuff. Really appreciate what you're doing here.
Make not one penny at it.
Well, nor I. We all get out here and we communicate a lot of data, and most of it's factual. But I'll tell you point blank, man, I think it's kind of one of these things that's just a service to do insofar as assisting others and awakening them.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do,
Yeah. Did it ever occur to you, and I'm not trying to switch subjects here, but that the UN, their symbol at the UN is very similar to Starfleet Academy out of Star Trek? You ever notice that?
It's also very close to the flat Earth symbol.
Oh, there you go again with that flat Earth.
I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. Look it up.
It depends on what dimensional space you're on to see the flat Earth. I mean, if you're on another dimension that's parallel to this one, maybe the planet would look like a flat Earth.
Perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Just an idea. Yeah.
But it is funny, though. That is the original flat Earth flag. It's very similar to the UN flag.
That's interesting. So you have that fixation, don't you?
No, I just find it very curious that people are completely going bananas with this flat Earth theory.
I've heard it too. Some people get flipped out. Yeah.
Yeah, and the more I look into it, not only does it sound and look bizarre and weird and just stupid, but at the same time, there is really good evidence. I mean, they're really presenting a case for this theory, so it's interesting.
It's worth looking into. There's no doubt about it. I'm not offended by any information. If people want to philosophize about something, I think it's great. Just like that glitch they call what's going on with the lunar wave. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but I've been trying to study that, and I think that's very interesting. So,
yeah, truth has no fear of being challenged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be digging into the flat Earth just so I can speak to it next time somebody like you comes up and presents it, because I just kind of discount it as the CIA psyops to see how many people would buy into it.
Great. So now you're going to be racking your brain the next 4 hours tonight Googling it, right?
No.
I'll send you some videos. You take a look at them, and then when you get your tinfoil hat on, you call me.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. But we do know the world is a hologram. Science, I mean, the research I work with Dr. Marcel Vogel, proved that with some of the technology we worked with. The rabbit hole goes very deep, and the world is far more fascinating and disturbing than we can possibly imagine.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's definitely a state of consciousness and energy and frequency and motion. When you look at it, it's all energy. Like you were saying, it's holographic, but it's all frequency-based.
And I think once you get to the deeper levels, it becomes less disturbing and more encouraging. Once you can reach that level. I haven't reached that fully yet. I'm still rather disturbed, but I think at the highest levels, I think there is a lot of hope for the human race.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, you're more optimistic than I am, but I always tell myself, in 100 years, will it matter?
Maybe when we reincarnate, we'll come back and maybe we'll see some of the fruits of our work in the alternative media.
Ooh, that'd be scary. Well, and I tell everybody I will not be coming back to this illusion of a planet. I'm going elsewhere. Another multiverse, far, far away.
I hope to see you there.
I'll send you one of those galactic postcards, virtual postcards, yeah. I think that's enough for me on this game board. No doubt. Hey, and how many minutes do we have here, Angel? I want to thank you also for producing tonight. You've been fabulous. I really thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's been great.
We got about 5 minutes.
Hey, cool. All right, so 5 minutes, Dan. What do you want to touch on?
I thought we were wrapping up.
I always overshoot things very quickly, but what do you want to talk about next 5 minutes? Yeah, just a little. In the illusion of space and time.
There you go.
It's my warp speed thing. Anything you want to touch base on that we didn't cover?
Here, I'm gonna go right back into this flat Earth thing for a second. I'm gonna send you an image on Skype. Both of you can check it out. It's the UN flag and the flat Earth flag, or look, I guess description, whatever. So you can check out how similar they are.
Okay. I'd like to share with the listeners a visualization that I wrote. If you go to the webmatrix.net, just click on Imagine This, and it's kind of a visualization of the world as looking at from a future perspective that helps in the manifestation, because as science is starting to show that what the subconscious minds of millions of minds are thinking actually has an effect collectively on the reality that we live in, and that's seeming to be coming into greater awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That is a creepy image there, Angel.
Right, right.
Very disturbing. Yeah. Now you're going to bother me tonight with this. This is like a Twilight Zone. That's just very interesting. Did you see that, Dan?
Yeah. Say that again? I'm sorry.
Image. Did you see the image that Angel just posted over here?
Oh,
It's
no,
on
I
the-
haven't.
It's on the Skype chat. Check out the Skype chat. I just posted the image there.
Oh, okay.
And if anybody wants to know the image I'm referring to, simply Google Flat Earth UN flag, and you're going to see them side by side.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's the same layout. They use that layout for some time.
Yep. But see, the Flat Earth layout, that design has been around for a very long time. That's been their model for many, many years, before the UN.
Oh, and you notice that in the squares, if you count them, how many are there? 33.
Yep, 33. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah, little codes are encoded into many things that we experience and take for granted.
Well, it sounds like we've all been had on the timeline. Yes,
Yep, we've been bamboozled, I think.
Yep.
Bamboozle, that's what it is. Yes, it's a bamboozle. The Welkenschellingskrieg, the worldview warfare, the matrix of perception, the great bamboozle of planet Earth. That's what
Pretty
it'll
much.
be.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, then you have to ask yourself, has it been a waste of time to live on this timeline and to be here in the illusion of living? If it's all but a lie, what's it for?
That's a good question.
I have to ask myself, it's a bust, man, incarnating on the timeline. For me, anyway. So then, once again, I will not be coming back to this planet.
Yeah, I'm not hoping for reincarnation either. I'm with you on that.
How about you, Dan? You and Rebecca going to break orbit too, eventually to another celestial star system?
Yeah. Back in the 70s, I had an old lady friend that used to say she was channeling space being. That's a story I need to tell you sometime. That's way bizarre, but the being who used to talk through, she used to say that it's your desire factor. Your desire factor, just desire to incarnate to another planet, and it'll take you there.
I agree. Well, there's also, as multidimensional beings, we have access to multidimensional space and other star systems just by our DNA and cells and atoms alone. We are a remnant of the multiverse.
You know what would be terrible, though, if you do incarnate in a different time and space, and it's just about the same.
I hope not.
It's just as miserable.
Oh, no.
And they're just covering everything up just like here.
Well, I'm very curious to see what's on the dark side of the moon in the illusion of a control panel, perhaps.
Actually, Dan, real quick, now talking on the moon, switching from the flat Earth, before we go off the air, what do you think of the Mona Lisa alien that supposedly the Apollo mission discovered on the moon?
I'm not real familiar with that one.
Oh, really? Oh, I got to send you some links.
Oh, please, yeah. There's so much I don't know, I can tell you.
Oh, it's an interesting, I think it was the Apollo... I think Apollo 11. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a mission that supposedly never happened, but it did happen. And they found a craft on the moon, which they had pictures of from before.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
And there was a couple bodies. Right, there's a couple bodies in there. One was really intact, and the other one was just a head, and the body were separated. And they supposedly took the body to their ship. And there's video footage. You could look it up on YouTube and see the entire footage. And it looks very authentic. You can see an astronaut in the thing, with the camera floating around it. It looks very, very authentic. Yeah.
Probably a lot of things that got leaked out there. It had little instruments or things hooked into the eyes. And
right. Yep, that's it.
Oh, okay. I remember seeing that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to say. In a world of disinformation, man, you just have to keep digging, and you get enough solid points that connect together to make the story, because they are flooding the world out there with the disinformation.
Oh yeah.
You gotta use discretion. Don't believe anything that we're saying on the show tonight. Do your own research and what makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Clarity is important.
Indeed.
It's a very busy multiverse and very busy here on the timeline in the illusion of space with the Earth. So, take the best of all worlds.
That, we're all out of time.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Dan, for being on the show. It's been great. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And thank you, Angel, for a wonderful show. Tune in next week, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful week.